Homeless woman asks Barron Trump for food. His response brings her to tears. It was a chilly evening in New York City, and the bustling streets were alive with the usual hum of hurried footsteps, glowing storefronts, and the occasional honk of a yellow cab. Among the sea of people, a frail woman sat huddled near the corner of Fifth Avenue, her worn coat and tattered gloves barely protecting her from the biting wind. Her name was Eleanor, though most people didn't bother to ask. To the passing crowd, she was just another homeless figure blending into the city's endless hustle. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop a comment below and please like the video. Thank you. Eleanor had been living on the streets for years, her once promising life unraveled by a series of misfortunes, a lost job, a medical crisis, and the loss of her family. She had learned to survive on scraps and kindness, though both were increasingly scarce. Tonight, she was particularly desperate. Her stomach churned with hunger, and the small tin cup by her side jingled with only a few coins, far from enough for a meal. As the evening deepened, her hope began to wane. At that very moment, a sleek black SUV pulled up across the street. A tall young man, flanked by two security guards, stepped out and glanced around. He was dressed in a sharp navy blazer and a crisp white shirt, his posture confident, yet unassuming. Few people recognized him at first, but the keen-eyed began whispering, and a small crowd started to form. This was Barron Trump, the youngest son of the former president of the United States. Barron was in the city for a private engagement, a charity dinner hosted by a prominent organization his family supported. Despite his privileged upbringing, Barron had always been quietly introspective, preferring to stay out of the limelight. As he prepared to head into the nearby venue, something caught his eye. A woman sitting on the cold pavement, her shoulders slumped in defeat. He stopped. His security detail, sensing his hesitation, urged him to keep moving. "We're on a schedule, sir," one of them said softly. But Barron ignored the suggestion and crossed the street toward Eleanor. The crowd watched, curious and murmuring amongst themselves. Eleanor didn't notice him at first. Her head was bowed low, her hands clutching the thin fabric of her coat. When she finally looked up, she was startled to see the tall figure standing before her. His piercing blue eyes met hers, and for a moment neither spoke. "Ma'am, are you hungry?" Barron asked, his voice gentle but firm. Eleanor blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "Yes," she finally whispered, her voice hoarse from the cold and lack of use. Without hesitation, Barron reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. But instead of handing her cash, he crouched down to her level, a gesture that shocked not only Eleanor but the onlookers as well. "Come with me," he said, extending his hand. Eleanor hesitated, glancing nervously at his imposing security guards. "I don't want to cause trouble," she muttered. "You're not causing trouble," Barron replied with a reassuring smile. "Everyone deserves to eat." Still uncertain but touched by his sincerity, Eleanor allowed him to help her up. Barron guided her to a nearby cafe, the kind of upscale establishment where someone like Eleanor would usually be shooed away. The staff froze for a moment as Barron walked in with her, but his calm demeanor and quiet authority quickly dispelled any doubts. He requested a private table and ensured she was seated comfortably before ordering a warm meal for her, a hearty soup, fresh bread, and hot tea. As the food arrived, Eleanor's hands trembled. She hadn't had a proper meal in weeks, and the sight of it brought tears to her eyes. "I don't know what to say," she murmured, looking up at him. "You don't have to say anything," Barron replied. "Just eat." As she ate, Barron asked her about her life, not out of curiosity, but genuine concern. Eleanor was hesitant at first, but his kind demeanor encouraged her to open up. She told him about her past, the dreams she once had, and the string of bad luck that had led her to this moment. Barron listened intently, nodding occasionally but never interrupting. By the end of the meal, Eleanor felt a warmth she hadn't experienced in years, not just from the food but from being treated with dignity. As they stood to leave, she expected him to simply wish her well and go on his way, but Barron had other plans. "I want to help you get back on your feet," he said. Eleanor's eyes widened. "You've already done so much," she said, her voice trembling. "I can't ask for more." "You're not asking," Barron replied. "And this isn't charity. Everyone needs a little help sometimes." True to his word, Barron didn't just offer her temporary relief. He arranged for her to stay at a reputable shelter that provided resources for job training and counseling. He even followed up personally, ensuring she had access to the support she needed to rebuild her life. Over the next few months, Eleanor found herself slowly regaining her footing. With the encouragement and assistance Barron had provided, she secured a part-time job and began piecing her life back together. The story of their encounter quickly went viral, touching hearts around the world. Some praised Barron for his humility and compassion, while others marveled at how a single act of kindness could transform a life. But for Barron, it wasn't about public recognition. When asked by a journalist why he had stopped to help Eleanor that night, his response was simple. "It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. Kindness is free, and everyone deserves a little bit of it." As for Eleanor, she never forgot the young man who had shown her compassion when she needed it most. In her words, "He didn't just give me food, he gave me hope, and that's something money can't buy." Months turned into a year, and Eleanor's life had transformed in ways she never thought possible. The job Barron had helped her secure was at a local nonprofit organization that focused on helping the homeless transition into stable housing. Eleanor excelled in her role, quickly becoming a key member of the team. Her experience on the streets gave her a unique perspective and allowed her to connect deeply with the people she served. But Eleanor didn't stop there. She had always dreamed of making a difference. And now, with a newfound sense of purpose, she began advocating for systemic changes to combat homelessness. She started speaking at community events, sharing her story of resilience and hope. Her once quiet voice became a powerful force, drawing attention to the plight of those often overlooked. Barron, meanwhile, stayed in touch. Despite his busy life, he would call Eleanor every few weeks to check on her progress. Their conversations often drifted beyond updates, diving into topics like the importance of empathy, the power of small gestures, and their shared desire to leave the world better than they found it. One day, Eleanor received an unexpected invitation. Barron was organizing a gala event for his newly launched initiative, *The Kindness Project, a foundation aimed at addressing homelessness across the United States. He wanted Eleanor to be the keynote speaker. At first, she hesitated. Public speaking on such a grand scale felt intimidating, and she wasn't sure her story was important enough to share with such an influential crowd. But Barron reassured her. "Eleanor, your story isn't just yours. It's a story of millions who face the same struggles. If anyone can make them understand, it's you." The night of the gala was a glittering affair, attended by politicians, philanthropists, and celebrities. Eleanor, dressed in an elegant gown Barron had sent her, took the stage with a mixture of nerves and determination. As she began to speak, the room fell silent. She shared her journey, not sparing the painful details of her time on the streets. She talked about the cold nights, the hunger, and the feeling of invisibility that haunted her every day. Then she spoke of the night Barron Trump stopped and asked if she was hungry, a moment that changed everything. "Barron didn't see a homeless woman. He saw a human being," Eleanor said, her voice steady. "And that one act of kindness reminded me that I mattered. It gave me the strength to believe in myself again." Her speech was met with a standing ovation, with many in the audience moved to tears. But the impact didn't stop there. Donations to *. The Kindness Project * surged that night, far exceeding expectations. Eleanor's story became a rallying cry, inspiring countless others to get involved in the fight against homelessness. In the months that followed, Barron and Eleanor worked together to expand * The Kindness Project. They opened resource centers in major cities, providing job training, mental health services, and transitional housing. Eleanor became the public face of the initiative, her voice and experience lending authenticity to the cause. The bond between Barron and Eleanor grew stronger. Despite their vastly different backgrounds, they shared a deep respect for each other. Barron often credited Eleanor with teaching him more about humanity than any book or lecture ever could. Years later, when Eleanor retired, she looked back on her life with pride and gratitude. She had gone from being invisible on the streets to becoming a beacon of hope for others, and it all began with a single act of kindness from a young man who dared to stop and ask, "Are you hungry?" As for Barron, he continued to champion causes close to his heart, often citing Eleanor as one of his greatest inspirations. In interviews, he would say, "Kindness isn't just an act, it's a responsibility. Eleanor reminded me of that, and it's a lesson I'll carry with me forever." Together, their story became a testament to the power of compassion and the profound impact one small gesture can have on the world.